for joining us on session 3. I believe this is our third time gathering. As we've been trying to just create more community conversations. Today we are talking about fostering mentorship in the Black community for victory over violence. Before I get into our panel introductions, we met and kind of wanted to frame out a little bit of the purpose around this conversation. One, we think that it's really important that Black people convene around the fate of our Black children. And Rodney presented me with our laminated manifesto, so I have to plug
Rainproof.
this. Rainproof, because it's raining. Just like my pants, I told them I wore these because it was raining, and I got to be ready. But this was a manifesto that we created in 2021. I got to shout out Maria and the Civic Response team, because a bunch of us came together to say, you know, why do we keep deferring to others in the fate of our children and our education? We believe in abundance, and we really believe that our community has everything that it needs to be successful. And I also believe that we have the responsibility of defining what success looks like for our community and achieving that. And so that was one reason why we really wanted to have this series and come together. Then another reason is that as we build this new beautiful school and as we merge our schools and become a larger network, we really want to make sure that folks understand that our school is for the entire community. It's for and it's by the entire community. It takes a village, and we wanted to make sure that y'all have the opportunity to come into what's being built and have say and take responsibility for what's being created. And we really want to position Howard Fuller Collegiate Academy as a place for that, as a place for convening, a place for joy, a place for innovation, and a vision for the future of our kids. And so all the folks that we have represented, all the folks here and beyond, and who are catching the stream later, we really see everybody as a foundational part to the institution that we're building. And while we see the physical building as a convener and a place for accountable action to advance Black youth, we also see us traveling into community and being an extension of the school. And then another reality that these individuals brought up as we were preparing for the panel was just that summer is right around the corner, and that's when we do tend to lose people, and we've lost students. And we hold that true, and we want to make sure that those losses are not in vain, that we are actually using this to keep us connected and to keep us focused on the larger mission that we have. Just because school's out doesn't mean education is out. And so we have to keep wrapping our arms around our young people, both in support of them, but also in what we receive from their knowledge. And so we kind of wanted to get into this conversation around mentorship, because I think that everybody here sees that as a critical intervention, but also like preventative measure to help protect against tragedies that we don't want to see, and both like more physical tragedies, but also just like the slow drain in knowledge or things that happen over the summer. So that's some context, and I'll let you all build more on that. But I wanted to start with our speakers in introducing themselves. Just tell us about why this conversation matters to you, and I think as you tell us why it matters to you, reveal elements of yourself that we might find in your bio, or what we might learn about you. So we want to kind of be strategic and hear from you, but also tell us about what you've done, why this conversation is important to you, why you are qualified to speak on this, and any accomplishments or other things that you all want to highlight. So we can jump in with Taylor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor McBride. I am a high school English teacher at Howard Fuller Collegiate Academy. I teach seniors, 12th grade British literature. I am also a board director of Artworks Milwaukee, and I also have my own LLC entitled Widening Equity. And the reason why this opportunity or this initiative is important to me, because it delves into different systemic oppressors that I see on a consistent basis wrapped around education, whether it be not having enough minority educators, whether it not be having enough opportunities for set educators to advance in education, just really sticking around the resources that are supported or not, and being able to partner up with different organizations to literally widen equity. So that's me.
Sweet. Just keep going?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Linnell Ramey with Mentor Greater Milwaukee. We're a relatively still new organization, 5 years old this year, so we're celebrating 5. I've actually been in youth development now, I hate to say this out loud, 30 years. I was trying to remember, but I wrote my first mentoring program back in 1994. I've worked in MPS several years. I was the director of the Black and Latino Male Achievement Department, which had a mentoring program. I spent 14 years at Boys and Girls Club of Greater Milwaukee for nearly, feels like a longer time than that, but nonetheless. So mentoring is near and dear to my heart. A good friend of mine is Prophet Anton Nixon, if you know him. He always says that there are mentors on both sides of the fence, right? There's those mentors who are going to steer our kids down the wrong way, and then there can be the mentors that steer them the right way. And when you think about academics and education in particular, unfortunately, a lot of parents now have trauma from schools. That's why they don't like to come in buildings anymore or deal with school because of the trauma they suffered. But I believe in schools, when we have a quality mentoring environment or mentoring mindsets, it helps those young people learn in a more safe environment. And so for me, this conversation, when you think about mentorship, it's not just in one way, it's in all aspects of a young person's life. And when I say that it's not, like I said, it's not just academics, but when they show up for work, when they're in their neighborhoods, in their churches, on their sports teams. So when we can surround young people with caring adults, then they have a tendency to improve across the board in all aspects of their life.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree with that more. Dr. Stephanie Manny Hartlaub, I proudly serve as the Senior Vice President and Executive Director at City Year Milwaukee. I think for me, when I think about mentoring, it is very personal how important it is. I am a person that I think is not supposed to be if we look at all the stats around me. Being raised by a single mom, I could not read by the 3rd grade. I always tell everybody I was so good at it. MPS gave me a chance to do it twice. Raised in 53208 zip code. So all of the things that say you shouldn't be and you can't be successful, I am successful because I had mentors. I had a teacher in 3rd grade, the first or 4th grade, the first one I ever had that looked like me, that allowed me to learn that I was worthy and that I was of value. And so I think the mentors that have picked me up, not the ones that I have picked, but that have selected me, have helped me to get to where I'm at. I think that is why I feel so connected to the work that we do at City Year, because we bring in these brilliant 17 to 25-year-olds who look like the kids that we serve inside of Milwaukee Public Schools, that have had similar experiences to them, and every day I get to watch them lift those kids up and help them know that they are worthy, and I think that that's what mentors can do for you, and so I just want to see that happening around the world. So.
Great. Now, Rodney Link Jr., CEO of HFCA. I would like to say, first off, this is super important to me because I believe that if you don't have the right mentors, as Lanil said, you can go down the wrong path. I'd like to tell this story of, I had one mentor, which is our teacher, and I think that's why educators are the most important people for youth. I'm a People Program alum. If you know People Program, it's a dope program. A lot of alums. There's a couple of alums in the house. There. But I didn't plant that one. I should have planted it better. But no, seriously. So my Miss Hartong, I always give it to her. Told me, oh, you should do the People Program, and 9th grade Rodney was like, I'm about to go work at State Fair, about to get that money, right? Summerfest, right? So I didn't do that. I didn't tell my mom about it, and my mom came to conferences and she brought it up again. And that really was the difference of my life, right? It was in that sense. And so I think that it's our job in this institution to provide people with people they can connect with, so we can combat the violence on the street that they're going after, because sometimes that's cooler. I think there's this other version though too. This is my mentor. I always say right here, Dr. Stephanie Manning. I say it proudly. I mean, there's a mentor for different seasons of life, and I think that what she embodies and what she's done, and I'm not the only one that she, talks to and supports, but she doesn't have to, and I think that's what we need to do. Someone was saying, while climbing, you're still reaching back. And she doesn't have to reach back. You know, as she tells me right now, I'm almost to retirement. I mean, she don't look like that, but she's ready. She's ready. But even do that, I already know when she retires, she's probably gonna be talking to a whole bunch of people on like one-on-one check-ins just to see. So, what's your life plan? What's going on? What do you need to execute on? And I think that's what matters the most when we have these convenings. And as HFCA continues to grow, and Lauren on our board, it's important for us to have these convenings to show that people care about our youth, care about our city. So I think that this mentorship is that. And I also want to give a shout out to my mentor to the left of me. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so you all are ranging in just kind of your own experience and exposure to mentorship, but there are some through lines that I think are consistent in the way that you all look at mentorship. Linnell, I'm gonna kick it off to you first, to just talk about mentorship. Like what is a mentor, what isn't a mentor, and then after Linnell speaks, I welcome you all to kind of weigh in what you want to double down on or expand on based on that.
Absolutely. So I think as adults, sometimes we really confuse what a mentor is, right? It's this idea that we think we're coming in as a parent or this, I know it all, right? Like, so follow what I did. But the truth is a mentor very simply is a mix of a teacher and a friend. That's the simplest way that we can say it. It's really someone who steps into space, understanding that when they're talking to a young person, it's not kind of in this authoritative figure. It's just really about becoming a guide on the side, right? There was a study done at the Search Institute, and it's funny, and this is in education, so they interviewed teachers, and 86 to 89% of the teachers said that they thought that they had developed good relationships, great relationships with their students. Well, they interviewed the students, and the students said they had good or great relationships with only 49% of their teachers. A relationship takes two people to be engaged. So when you think about a mentoring relationship, it takes two. We have too many times, I think as adults, we say, I'm big bro. My little kid said, I don't even like him. I don't even rock with her. So we make assumptions, but we really haven't tapped into a young person. So a mentor is really somebody we say that's a guide on the side. It's not the objective of a mentor to push a young person into something or hold them. No, we got to let our young people still live by making sure we give them the right advice, but they have to find their way knowing that someone is going to be on the side of them to really catch them and hold them up. So that's really the beauty of what a mentor is. And Rodney said something earlier, mentors aren't always meant to last a lifetime either. I think there's this assumption that as a mentor, somebody thinks, oh, okay, I got to be with this person from birth to sick. No, it really, the data says 6 months, a minimum of an hour and a half a month for just 6 months. You can have an impact in a young person's life. So I'm in on this, and then just I want you visually to understand how many of us do gardening of some sort or knew somebody that did gardening, right? You plant the seed, right? And that's all you do sometimes. As a mentor, you may be the one that plants a seed. The next step in that is what? Somebody comes along and water it. That may not be your role. Your role is to plant the seed on education, how important education is. Somebody comes along and say, listen, man, I didn't like school when I was younger either, but guess what I did? Okay, that's a little water. But then somebody else may come along, i.e. Dr. Manning, right, and says, the fruits of the labor, I see you went through this, you did that, and continue the journey for that person. We can fit in any one of those sections. We don't have to own it all. And that's the thing that a mentor needs to be able to do, understand where they are in that life of that young person, and just own what you got, and then be able to pass it on. Simple as that.
I appreciate that because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions or misunderstandings, and so I'm going to ask you all to weigh in on that. And I just wanted to remind the audience, as you're listening, to be thinking about the people who you have mentored or you are currently mentoring, and see if you're hitting some of these qualifications as you think about the definition of your relationship with them, right? Because I'm assuming everybody in here does mentor someone, and there could be opportunities for growth in your mentorship. And I'm also assuming everybody in here has a mentor, and there could be opportunities for growth in the relationship that you could take back to your mentor. So as you all are listening to these definitions, I just wanted to make sure your minds were moving and you're listening here around some of those contextual pieces, because I'm definitely thinking about that. Taylor, Stephanie, Rodney, anything to add?
I think I agree with everything that Linnell said. I just see mentoring as somebody that's a collaborator, a trusted advisor, and too frequently we think about that in terms of age, right? I feel like every day I get to go to work and I have people that are 25 years old that are mentoring me and guiding me and teaching me the way of the world, because you know I'm a child of the 70s and this new world is not always for me. And so I think that they are guiding me and they are setting me in the right direction so that I'm able to like navigate this new space that I find myself in. So we can't get caught up in age and think just because you're older, that means you know more, you know better. You don't always know better, right? That we all have to be in a space of being a learner on that journey. Rodney's taught me quite a few things too. I mean, not about the cool stuff, but some things.
Dang, at the same time.
I love that.
That's what I
love
do.
the piece about learning from. So that's a good reminder that if we're not, you know, if we're not continuously learning and versing ourselves in what's going on and bringing that to the mentorship relationship, then we're falling short. Rodney or Taylor, any thoughts?
I guess I'd like to speak on the piece where he was talking about how, you know, there's going to be a switch, kind of like a passing of the mantle, you know, when if you think of how we're brought into the world, you know, we have our parents that lead us and guide us, and then when the tables turn, we're now caring for our parents. So it's like this cycle that takes place, and I think that if we envelop our thought process in the fact that everything is cyclic, based on humanity, like how we come and how we go, and we need to look at it in that respect. Like, we're definitely passing the baton, passing the mantle, but we're running not with the same weight, you know, that the generation before us carried. It's like we have a lighter load or a different type of load because we've encountered living in a different way. So when you say, hey, now you are employing younger workers, not just because they work with you, but because they actually have something to teach you. You know, so I think when we embody it like that, it's just a calmer sector of education and training, and it's on the fly. It's very organic. Like, I want to learn some different things. I don't want to feel like I'm being oppressed because I don't know, and then there's this lane of people that are ready to teach. So that's how I look at it.
I love that.
Yeah, I think the last thing to end on this part will just be the phases and how you said there's different seasons. And I think this is also lets us have like stability and longevity. Like, sometimes I only have capacity to plant the seed with you, right? And then someone else can water it. And that's when you really go to this village part of it. I just think that even with teachers in the community and people, if you're not inside of a schoolhouse, right, are you helping a schoolhouse? I know that was a challenge at the last, every one of them, like, Dr. Monique Liston was saying, like, I should be inside a schoolhouse, right? How am I in there to help for 90 minutes a month, right? 90 minutes or 30 minutes, 3 days of the month. Like, how do you do that? And I think that is important because it also helps our teachers who are trying to educate, also support them in, you know, social, emotional, mental. But if someone else is there, I think that also is going to be important. And so I just think that that's another challenge for us to think about the manifesto and the whole city of Milwaukee jumping in with that. So I wrote it down obviously here, but I'm going to talk offline to you and know about the 6 months, 90 minutes in that research. That was, when you break that down, it doesn't seem like it's that much to really have impact on someone's life. You just got to be intentional for those 90 minutes.
And I think that's what's important, right? And when you think about a mentoring mindset for that, I'm so glad you said that. Because when you say that number, people look at you like, that's not a, but think about, again, the baton passing portion of that, right? The baton passing portion really is about, my job is to come in at this moment and do what I can do. Like I said, if it's just a seed, you can transform somebody's thinking in that 6 months, an hour and a half of intentional, dedicated, focused time. So
I love that. Recently in the conversation about mentorship too, people have been talking about like the idea of coaching and sponsorship as well. So if you all have any thoughts on that too, you know, just going beyond and saying kind of what is the difference between a mentor and a coach, or like a mentor and a sponsor. But I do think that they're all like elements of mentorship, or there's a component. I think it all starts with mentorship, I should say. But just wanted to make sure people know that that's a part of the conversation. And so as you're thinking about this and you're like, oh, check, I'm accountable, like I'm listening, I'm a mentor, right? Maybe the next level could be to be a sponsor, where you're putting your resources, your time, your money behind elevating somebody. And so I don't know if y'all.
And thank you for saying that, because, and I'm going to pick on my man, B. Joe, right? Because phenomenal basketball coach, right? And he'll tell you, like he.
Last set, you gotta do that better, man. B. Joe's the most current basketball coach that has a state championship in the state of Wisconsin.
That's my man. So
be real about that part.
That part I left out.
I got you.
State champion, winning. But he'll tell you, like in coaching, it's a skill I'm teaching, right? Like, so from a coach's element, when you think about people who use the word, I'm a coach, I'm coaching this person, it's usually a skill set that they're only giving. And so it's like, I'm gonna teach you how to be a point guard. I'm gonna teach you how to rebound. I'm gonna teach you how to shoot with your left hand, your right hand. And it's the same thing on the job. When someone said, I'm gonna coach you, it's usually in that profession. I'm gonna teach you how to be a hell of an educator. I'm gonna teach you how to be a great accountant. The layer up on that is where the relationship kicks in. It's when you can come to me, DJ will tell you, when that kid who's struggling in school and he don't touch the ball and he just said, come talk to me, what's going on? Yeah. That's the, you know, and I'm able to do both, but that's the difference in how we see mentoring, is being able to get really personal, really take in the whole, in this case, the whole youth, right? The whole child, and make sure we're in tune to their emotions and their feelings. Because I think people do say, well, I'm coaching this or I'm sponsoring, and it's like, but then they don't deal with the relationship side, or they just focus on the career side only, so.
I think the through thread for me, for all of them, whether you're a sponsor, a coach, or a mentor, is that you are listening, you are learning, and your job is like elevating. Whether you're doing it as a coach, you're elevating that skill set. As a mentor, we're having these discussions and I'm elevating your mindset, or as a sponsor, I might be trying to elevate your career. So I think all of it involves all three of those components. It's just how you use them, and do you use them effectively.
Facts.
I love that. So let's build on, I want to get into the youth piece of mentorship. I think it's kind of assumed that we're talking about young people. So if there are people here who are young people and consider themselves young people, I want you to be thinking about how we answer and take on this question as well, inviting you into the conversation. But what do you all feel like people misunderstand about mentorship related to young people and youth development? Like, what do you think is often misunderstood? Maybe around what they're navigating, but just how you approach a mentorship experience with a young person.
I think we oftentimes approach it incorrectly, right? Because we approach it from a space that I'm an expert,
Bingo.
I know it all. That's not me, but I know it all, and so I'm here to provide you with all the gifts of my knowledge, right? And sometimes I feel like we gain knowledge from our experiences, and you may be working alongside or collaborating with a youth whose experiences are so different from yours, right? So you have to be in a space to be listening, to be observing, to understand that in all these relationships, there has to be a give and a take, right? I think too often, people are approaching it, especially with youth, not recognizing the power that they have, right? The power in your age, the power in your expertise, and not trying to figure out how to create a safe and collaborative environment. So I think that's the mistake that we make. We often forget about our power, right? I'm in schools every day, and it's like, oh, the kids really like me. Well, I don't know if they like me, but they know if I talk to that principal, they're gonna be in trouble. And so don't forget about that power that we're entering those situations with.
That's good. Power is always a good conversation. What do you think?
Yeah, we make a mistake in thinking kids are monolithic, right? Like we walk in as adults, and going back to Stephanie's point out, we as adults come in with all of our experiences, all of our know-it-alls. We think we done been through it. So when we get in front of kids, are y'all kids? Are they kids? So no, every kid, they're different, right? And then there's an assumption in mentoring that mentoring is just for that trouble kid, that at-risk kid. Not knowing that kid that got a 4.0 need a hug and someone that listen to them as much as the kid with a point for them. And so we walk into these, I think, relationships when wearing our mentor hat as, oh, I've been through it all. Okay, I'm gonna just talk to you because I dealt with a kid like you 2 months ago or 3 years ago. Not listening to the kid, their issues, their situations. And then that's where kids continue to not have a trusting relationship with adults, because they start saying stuff like, oh, y'all ain't nobody listening to me. You keep treating me like them, and I don't even like that, right? Like, so, those are the things I see on a regular basis. Look at the Kia Boys scenario. We start seeing kids, and everybody got looped into the same category. If they had on a hoodie, a mask, and they was walking like, Kia Boys in the building. Like, and they got sick and tired of hearing that stuff too. Like, even how we approach those relationships with dealing with youth in general, and putting them in buckets and saying that, as one, all teens are this, or all middle school kids are this. We got to stop doing that, because that hinders the mentoring relationship.
I also think that, just to echo some of the sentiments that he stated, is that it's not always birthed out of something being wrong. It's not always because this child is troubled or this child comes from a single parent household. People need advice at all walks of life. So I think that sometimes looking at it as a way to be just a positive entity, and it doesn't always have to come from trauma. I think that's one of the misconceptions associated with mentorship. That if I have a mentor, that something must have gone wrong in your life to have afforded you to need, someone to guide you through said part of your life. But it's really one of the most high moves that you can make to say, hey, I don't know it all, and I want to sit at this person's feet as I gain said knowledge on said topic.
Yeah, the term comes to me, Dr. Fuller says a lot of relational engagement, and like how kids are able to not be coerced into do things, even though I would say the last 13 years of my career, we've been trying to figure out how to do, course kids. I think this next chapter, this next phase is how do we let them be a part of it. And I think that part is what mentorship is as well. Back to Silky, what he was saying, not trying to coerce kids to go to a 2 or 4 year college, but at least provide them the opportunity to make the decision if it's that or if it's something else. I think that's something that we're dealing with, and we're doing it wrong too at different times, and we're trying to learn from it. But I think that we're going to do in the next 20 years at HFCA, really taking a look stance at it and trying to ensure that kids are a part of that. So one thing that we did, like kids picked the new core values for the organization, right? And so they had a listening group, and they actually did better than adults. We just sat to the side and let them talk, and they organized themselves well. They didn't have to make, we make all the meeting norms and input, be aware, be here. Like they was like, hey, you didn't say nothing. We need you to say, you gonna vote on this or not? How you feel? Right. That's how they were handling themselves, which really made me think like sometimes adults could be hindering the youth leadership in that way too sometimes. So we have to watch out for that as well. So I think that this is something that it's a growing thing and a learning thing for all adults. And I think I don't want to say this, but you know how like the black folks go into those generations? Like I feel like Dr. Fuller's at a different one, and then Michelle, my board chair's at a different one, and then we had Stephanie's at a different one. It's just like I'm kind of going to that next level of like older black people, you know what I mean? And I don't want to.
It's inevitable.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
God willing. Like,
the other day, my son did something. I was like, how you do that? Like, how you know how to use that? Like, I didn't know that I did that, right? Like, and that's what my grandfather used to say to me. So I'm trying to. I just think we got to.
We got a little time right now.
you got a little time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
Lauren, can I just add on
ahead.
to what Rodney was saying, is that I think in that is like choice, right?
Yeah.
And kind of what Silky was saying prior in the previous conversations about we are directing kids, like here is what is best for you, like a 2 or 4 year college. And I see it, I think from my perspective is my job is to help to get you ready so that you can have that choice, right? Like what are the skills and dispositions that you need? And my job is just to get you ready. How you use those is up to you, right? I should not orchestrate that like for you, because at the end of the day, if you're making that choice, you're gonna be happy with it, or you're gonna deal with the consequences of it, right? But like, that's for you to decide.
And this is why mentorship is so important in multiple levels. Like, we're trying to get people to understand the importance that young folks need to have mentors spread out throughout their life, right? And at the same time, so when this conversation happens, and like in one ear they're hearing, go to college, and in another ear they're like, oh man, you should just go be an apprentice. Like, there need to be multiple conversations. So again, the tools they're receiving from the mentoring relationship, they can be like, okay, trusting, okay, you know what, I'm gonna try this first. But that comes from the relationship and understanding that those people are really there for them. And it's not about the numbers, because it was, to me, the point, and Silky, we keep calling you Silky, right? But like he said, though, there was a time I feel like we kept pushing young black boys in particular into apprenticeship programs. Like, there was a time, hey, you should just do apprenticeship. And then there was a time like, oh no, we're gonna go the other way now. It's like, we just have to keep them informed so they can make the choice that's best for them. And then when they need to switch, they know they still got that adult in their life that they can go back and talk to, so.
Yeah. But this is also why we need to be conscious about what opportunities are out there, because we can only educate folks on what we know. So like, to your point, and I said I would open that last question up to young people too. So please just raise your hand if you have a thought. Go ahead. Did you want to speak on this piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was actually writing the question.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Carl, program coordinator at Mentor. So, hi boss. But the question is, you guys were talking about choice, and I've experienced this a lot growing up from my parents. So, how do we navigate choice when most parents believe that you really don't have one? Like, kind of saying, like, we're there to make sure that you do go to college, because as being black, it's kind of like, you have no choice.
Right.
But that's where a mentor, and then one of the things I think people get confused about, we define a mentor as someone outside the home. I don't care if you have two phenomenal parents or you got two parents who ain't, right? When you have quality mentors around and you can come home and you say, Carl, like, Mom, Dad, like, Mr. Linnell, we were talking about this, and then they know there's some trust, then they can be like, okay, let me talk to Mr. Linnell. And now that's why mentorship outside of the home is so important, because sometimes us as parents, they say, do as I say, period. And so that's where I think that comes in, at making sure mentors then are able to then connect with families. And we know that's tough, but when a young person comes home and talk about that mentor, they're gonna talk about it in the way where the parents gonna be like, all right, who is this Mr. Linnell? like, because my parents never met my mentor in high school. It was Mr. Wild, Tom Wild. He went to he was Riverside freshman year through my senior year. Corny white guy, corny as can be. But I kept talking about Mr. Wild for the 4 years, and so when they finally got a chance to meet him, they were just like, "You're the one that, thank you." Like, even though they never met him before, like the first 2-3 years. But that's why outside the home mentoring is so important, to help parents see another perspective about their young person.
And I feel like, too, that's a part of why these conversations are so important. I feel like my daughters, who both have gone on to college, I think just wanted to get it away from me. But I think if they would have come and said, like, oh, I'm going to be a dancer, or I want to go and do this apprenticeship program, I would have been more open to it, because I see it like, I didn't think as a young person that I had that choice, right? I knew that, like, we were raised, we didn't have a lot, and I wanted to eat, and I wanted to know consistently where I was going to live, right? And so I knew, like, I had to, like, get a job, right? So when I got a job, I was gonna be a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor. At one point, I thought I was gonna be a Navy SEAL, but they require you to know how to swim, and I can't swim, so that career was not gonna work out for me. But I think for me, I think I would have thought about it as, like, how fortunate are they that now they're sitting in a position where they feel like they don't have to go this traditional route, and that I feel privileged enough to be able to create the space for them to be able to do that. Now, they in college, and I didn't pay that tuition, so you finish out. But that,
The check is cash.
the check is cash, so we gonna finish this year.
Yeah. So I wanted to build on Silky's point, though, about just and hear from you all on some of the topics that are either coming up in mentorship conversations or that should come up. Because I think something that he was suggesting, like it was a question, but also it was like a push to us to say like, hey, while we're having these mentorship conversations, here's some things that we should be bringing up. And so I wanted to see if you all had thoughts, and also if the audience, if you just wanted to raise your hand and put your thoughts on like a topic. Yeah, you just saw you shaking your head probably because you asked her if she wanted to contribute, and then she was like, no, I don't want to
Leave
contribute.
me alone, right?
If you would bless us with your contribution.
So I already did the popcorn. Leave me.
You feel free to tell us, but I'm curious about what you all think should be part of some of these mentorship conversations. What should we be talking about? And I'll say for Silky, one he's saying is how do we start monetizing and teaching financial literacy and monetizing some of the work and contributions of young people even while they're in high school. Yeah.
So I think one thing that came to my mind is when we look at, like, we have to be honest about where we are as a culture, not just Black, but people, where our students are, and we have to be honest about the effects that the pandemic still has on our children and how education exists. I think it's also important to be mindful that we were grown in the pandemic, and they were transitioning and growing up and going from middle school to high school. Some students, spending 2 years, not really a senior graduating, but really more like a sophomore, just based on the integration. And so during that time, they were able to see a lot of different moving pieces in terms of like businesses that were developed and how they were able to be at McDonald's but be in Google Classroom at the same time. You know what I mean? It was like it was presented to them almost like school wasn't really necessary. Right. So I think when we get to the point of reconditioning the mindset toward school, toward advancement, we then embody like their natural gifts like at these points. So one thing that came to my mind was actually having like, these kids have a lot of talents. So having like a network mixer to where you can really have them, have business cards, talk about what they do on the side, and they're not making chump change. These kids are making a lot of money. High school is just a formality. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta go this path to get to what I have to do next. So I think doing the regeneration of that thought process toward education and what we really need to get ahead, I think that's important. And just really being mindful of the effects of the pandemic. Like, they're gonna be long lasting. Like, just as long as it happened, we have to undo it in order to put something else on the table. It's kind of like when you're seeking like some type of deliverance, like, you know what I mean? There has to be a substitution in order for that to take place.
Yes, that's awesome.
I have a different, not different from Ms. McBride, but like.
Because please don't do that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing.
I'm of the theory, the thought group that people that say that. It's like the people that say you don't have to go to college. The main people that you say that went to college, right? You don't have to do that. But they usually, you don't got to go to college. I went to college, and it's like, well, I think we need to prepare youth for that. I hate the gig economy. I'm not hating on people. I know it makes people have other things, Uber and Uber Eats and DoorDash, and I know it does. It helps Amazon, Echo, all those things. It helps. Short term for the oppressive systemic system for not giving people, but I also believe that education is something that is biased, got to meet to the place that I'm at, and I think that it can really impact other people. So I get very worrisome when people say, you don't have to prepare that for them, because I don't know where it's coming from, right? Is it coming from like a sense of doubt? Do you think they'll make it? Because most times when people say that they had a traumatic experience when they went to college, or they didn't finish through, sometimes from people, this is my, let me say all the right words, from my limited perspective, this is not a hasty generalization, but from people that I've talked with, like, oh, you shouldn't go to that college, or, I went to college, got all these loans. It's like, well, you probably, what were you doing in school? Did you try to get some scholarships beforehand? Because I talked to, people that go to Howard University, and Howard expensive.
Tell it.
That's a but I know other people was like told them, hey, you gonna prepare for Howard, and I know they got some scholarships too, at least that they thought that through. So I just get really worrisome that if we're just making people try to search for the dollar, like gig economy, I'm getting money right now, I'm getting it fast. We're not talking about like what the rest of their life will be like. Because I think that is something that I see a lot with some of my staff, some of like students, and like even when I talked to a student the other day when I was teaching math first semester, and they moved around like 3 times already in the course of 6 months, right? 3 different apartments. But they out here getting it. They got the new J's, new all the other stuff. But we had a real conversation around like, hey, my son is about to be 5 this year, right? And he hasn't moved. Only time he moved back from Hawaii. We're in a place that he was at. I know we talked about that. But only time he moved back from he's been in his house. And again, I'm not trying to say this. You have to make sure that someone's in one place because things happen. But I think that education gives you that out to be able to have the full life of it. And it's not just like you need to make 6 figures, but the gig economy and like the people that saying they make money on TikTok, because I had an argument with a staff member, they're trying to ban TikTok. We make a lot of money on TikTok shop. I was like, what's a lot of money, right? Because I'm a finance major and I wanted to be a hedge fund manager. So there's different versions of a lot of money. And
That's true, and it's different for different people.
But your profit margin and your return on investment, if everything costs, I see so many people say they got, again, I'm about to get in trouble now. They'd be like, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I'd be like, okay, how many people on your payroll? Like, how many FTEs do you have? Oh, I'm just by myself. I'm like, okay. But you still work here too, though, right? You still work at whatever your job. Like, I know it's hating. It sounds like it's hating a little bit, but it's called an opportunity cost. The time that goes in, money's out. But if you're doing it because you love it, great, do it. Say that, and I'm fine with that too. But I think when we're trying to make people raise strong communities and strong families, we have to help them see that. And I'll take pushback on this.
I'm pushing back because I don't think it's a no. I think it's not a straight line. And so I think the way we try to describe it is you have to finish K-12 and then you have to immediately go here,
Correct.
Right? And if you don't immediately go here, then there's no opportunity for you to be successful, right? But so many young people go from here to here, and I think personally I'm taken aback by everything I see from whether it's the public school district, whether it's the charter network or the choice network. We have 100% college admission, and we have $5 million in scholarships. Guess what? You sent those babies off into that space. They got that loan and they're home because that environment wasn't ready for them, and we had not prepared them with the confidence and the self-love and self-efficacy that they needed to thrive in that environment. Then you go over to Europe, and you know what everybody does in Europe? They send their lovely children off to school, and then they're like, okay, now you take your gap year and you go and explore the world and you figure out like who you want to be and how you show up in it. Well, I'm going to push back because I think our young people deserve that same opportunity to discover who they are, to learn to love themselves. And if they decide that I'm going to go and fail on the streets of New York, well, not on the streets, y'all, but on Broadway.
Right, Broadway.
Not on the streets. Let me stop. Not the streets, but I'm going to go and take and try to find who I want to be, and then later maybe I'm going to go to school after I've worked for a while or while I've done whatever. I believe that they deserve that opportunity. I went to college lots of times. It was, it was what it was.
Yeah,
I learned a lot. It allowed me to get here, but I don't think it has to be like a through line in the way that we make it. Sorry.
Can I rebuttal that real quick on that? Just real quick.
It's your show.
It's a real-
I'm
no, it's not my
guest.
It's my show.
I'm sorry, Lauren.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Lauren.
So I don't think I said straight line through, but I think that also comes with like privilege, right? Like the gap year. Like, the Obama girls, they did it. They both did it. Malia, Sasha and Malia, they both did a gap year, which is cool. And if my son want to do a gap year, he probably gonna have the means to be able to do that, right? I just think that some of it is kind of a place where, like, 2 things to address with that. The one thing is, when they got those loans, what type of career, college and career readiness department was helping them have the best match for them, helping them find the best match school, clustering them. This is stuff that we're going to do at HFCA. Clustering them at a place that'll make them feel like they have a community at Carroll University, right? If we send 10 kids there, if you don't Carroll University, they graduate 0% black people. But we try to send some, we send a cluster of kids, just like in the Housing People program. There was a cluster of us in white Madison, because Madison's super white. But we all, you know, the MLC, you know, the People program, PKs, Power Snaps, you know, like all of us were able to get together and is that right, Power Snaps?
Power Snap.
That
Black people love adding S's to stuff.
Right there,
Taco
that,
Bells.
that whole thing.
I mean, I think we're on the same accord, but I just think that we have to be real about, like, the risk, or I don't want to say at risk, but the risk that someone takes a gap year inside the inner city is the risk that it may be hard unless they have a good mentor helping them navigate that year.
Or you have programs like City Year that are.
I knew she was
I like that.
I
That
knew
was
she-
nice. That was nice.
I knew that's
Oh,
where
that
she
was
was
nice.
going.
That-
I knew it.
I
I
let
love
that
it.
flow.
I knew it.
So
On
I'm
brand,
going to take
on
that,
brand.
what they said, kind of the question about what we should be talking about, right?
That's right. What
And
should
I
we
think
talk about?
these are the things, but what happens is so much, I feel with young people, mentors don't ask the in-depth question of the why.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go to school? Why? I hate school. Why you hate school? You got a 3-point. Well, I hate it. I don't like the teachers. I hate getting up in the morning. I do. The why as mentors is the most important thing when working with young people, because we can't be dream killers as mentors, right? So when like BJ gone, but we used to coach together. So basketball, when a kid like I'm going to the league, hey fam, you're not going to the league, right? I can't say that. I shouldn't say that. But what I should say is this. I should say, well, if you want to go to the league, hey, you got to start getting up at 4 a.m. You got to start taking 500 jump shots. But did you know that coaches make X amount and may have longer careers than basketball players? Did you know you can be a trainer and be a millionaire? Do you know the people that do the floor at the Fiserv Arena make over $100,000 a year as a mentor? When we're able to have those why you don't, or why this, then you're able to navigate, I think, that young person getting better even understanding on what their path should really be. Like, because that's what's critical. Because as a good mentor, I should be able to be like, hey, man, you don't really have a left hand. And so basketball, but bro, you sure do know how to coach when we be doing, you should think about sports medicine or this, because then if you do, now I can set up a whole lot of things. So I think the questions and terminology that comes from mentor is the why, and then help them navigate that.
No, that's right. I think you're getting at the question I was going to ask too, because I think we say blanket things like you should go to college or you should do something. But even just saying college, like that's saying a lot of stuff.
A lot of different
Because
stuff.
that's not just, that's saying everything from getting a particular skill development, building a network and of wealthy individuals and privileged individuals around you that's going to carry you to the next level of your career. That could be saying getting out of state. That could be saying staying in state. That could be saying, like, when you just, college isn't enough information to actually advise anybody in any direction, because we don't even know what they mean. Why, right? What do you mean by college? And I think creating spaces where the young people or anyone we're mentoring should also be asking us why. Because hearing Rodney's why, I get what Rodney's talking about. Like, we've had these conversations, but he's talking about black wealth. He's talking about moving into putting yourselves in positions so that you will get to know these people at business school and see what's going on the other side and know how to run a business and start accessing money that's way beyond maybe what you thought you had at this idea and not settling for what we see. And then what I hear on Stephanie's side too is like, also not saying that if we're not doing that, that we're not worth anything, or also saying that we shouldn't have the opportunity to be free and explore, right? But those are all different. Some colleges don't educate well, and some colleges, and sometimes not going to college, you're not going to spend that time productively exploring what's an opportunity. So I think that question about clarification is critical. And I think we had another addition or a question. Go ahead.
A thought. I just wanted to say that I think what mentoring has done for my daughter is really helped her to be exposed to different people and industries and things like that. And I think that like within a week, you know, she's part of Artworks. She was able to meet with her mentor, her big sister, who she had for the last 2 years, her godmother. So I was just watching like the different people that she interacts with, you know, in a small, short time. And in that time, she's able to see these different experiences. And I think with that, she's able to gain the confidence that she would need to make those decisions by the time she graduates. So I don't know if I think it's a matter of saying you have to go to school or go to college after your senior year, but you being in a space where you feel like I can make this decision on my own.
Right.
And I think that's what mentoring does. At least it did for my daughter.
That's
I think
what it
it's
does.
helping her to have these different perspectives, see these different people who are doing different things, and then starting to see that and see how that connects to what she wants to do.
That's beautiful.
Can I throw this in real quick, Lauren? I'm sorry, yeah. And this is why with education, we have something we say called relationship centered schools. It's about any and everyone in the school building, had the secretary, the cook, the security guard, and the teachers and the counselors. Because if that young person walks through the building, because here's the beautiful thing you said, you mentioned artworks, right? And like, all of our kids don't have access, say, to those because of the limitations in numbers alone. But if I walk into the school building and it's at least 5 different people that I have a relationship with that I know cares about me, I can at least walk out that building still being informed because now I know I'm looked after, I'm loved, and I think that's why it's important when we think about mentorship. It's not just the teachers in the classroom, right? Not the administrator. It's that cook. 'Cause back in the day when we had to give them our chicken leg, and the cook was like, "Baby, you want another one?" "Yes, ma'am." Like, right? Like, but there was a relationship because she knew certain kids in need. Like, you know, but when that cook knows it and the secretary and the security guard transforms the life of a young person, I think, in the school building. So I'm so sorry.
That's right.
No, it's okay. I was just thinking about, you reminded me of the MATC Gap Year program because my son literally just went through that. He every year goes through this immaturity level and all of a sudden matures and is ready at the end of the year, but he didn't know what he wanted to do yet. And here he is, he has family that will mentor and give that, but at the same time he still didn't know what he wanted to do. So to be able to say, I'm going to free you from that obligation of feeling like you've got to jump into this next thing next. You are going to work while you're waiting,
Sure.
but at the same time, being in programs like that where you can say, I can take my time, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but when I do know, I can jump into it with confidence, and that's what I'm seeing even now with him, but having that there. We do have programs here in Milwaukee that are there, but you have to say, like, how do we amplify these things so
Absolutely.
that all of our kids have that type of experience? Yes, we're parents that are going to look for it and say, hey, this is here, but then, like you said, the mentoring, how do we amplify that to this? You have your program. I hadn't heard. I mean, no, yes, I do know Paul Morgan.
Mr. Morgan, yes, sir. Yes.
That's a real good family. But thinking about how do we amplify this so they know what they have access to? How do we have that in the school building so they know I can sign up for this, or this? And some schools are doing really good with that, but then what about the ones that are not?
Yeah, I love that because that's why I kind of took a pivot and I'm gonna reopen this question out to the audience too and to our young people too, on the topic of what should we be discussing, and so we talked about the necessity of like just generally the necessity of school and how that shifted since the pandemic and education as a formality and just entering that topic with our mentees. We talked about like networking and being able to share and expose students to people. We talked about college and like actually having a conversation with people we're mentoring about college. What else? And then exposure is what I hear, like kind of y'all saying just like why you need to be in community and be exposed to what's happening in our community. Other topics or things that you all think are important to incorporate in mentorship relationships.
I probably will get yelled at later for this one. But, I actually wrote, I'm sorry, I wrote everyone's name down. Okay, I got you.
Ms. Taylor?
Tay. Little money. Big Steph.
Steph.
Honey.
I brought up the pandemic, and I want to kind of touch back on it. Is there an undoing of the pandemic? Because I feel that technology is playing like a strong role in this.
So technology.
And I think
Okay.
when it comes to even mentorship, I have a mentor that I am literally using Telegram on a very daily basis just to call her, and she lives in North Carolina. She's a 50-year-old black woman as well, at that. So, and she knows how to use technology. She can talk to me about crypto, Web3, AI on a regular basis. So when I hear that, and I hear on a regular basis that, no, this technology is not for me. No, this technology is for somebody else. No, this technology is too much for me. I can't do it. I also see that as a barrier because we're building relationships even through that. So I guess my question really is, how do we undo a pandemic when I think the pandemic is kind of unveiling where our future is going?
I think it's a very wise question that you posed. And I think there were a few different elements that I think were on the table. So it wasn't about undoing what technology showed us, but it was more or less from that social emotional standpoint,
Right.
like being isolated and doing well. You don't need anyone outside of your room. Here's your food.
Bingo.
You know, here's the classroom. This works, you know what I mean? I don't have to go to the building. I get everything that I need in this room. And as I'm developing, this is really becoming my stronghold, you know what I mean? This is actually becoming the way I navigate. And so when I say undo, I mean it from a psychological standpoint, you know, some elements of it, because as you stated, it opened up the door in a lot of cases. When you think of churches, when you think of small groups, when you think of businesses, there's a lot of things that were happening that didn't need to happen.
Right.
And the pandemic introduced us to an easier way of living. And so, I think we're on the same page, and I think that it's important to employ the idea of mentorship in the Black community. We have to think of what the Swiss cheese is. So we have this layer, but there's these certain holes. So we in our Blackness say, hey, this is what we need to do to get out of this hole. But we have to also look at the relationship that needs to be present between parents and mentors, because let's be real, like, where have we heard largely, when you're 18, you out of here, I'm done, I've done my job. You know what I mean? And how much that sets back a certain demographic, a certain age group.
You can't take a gap year when someone kicking you out at 18.
What you say?
No, it was just taking.
Little money over here, too.
Little money, just having some.
But I think it's important that there is relationship between mentors and parents. And some parents are at a place where they feel like, what can they teach you? You know what I mean? I'm teaching you everything you need to know. But I feel relieved when I can just be mom and there are other people to do other things, you know what I mean, to help take my child from point A to point B. I feel,
I second that.
yes, I feel totally relieved. So I think that is essential for parents to have relationship or some knowledge. You said your parents didn't meet your mentor until you were leaving high school.
It happens a lot.
Yeah,
It happens a lot.
it does. It really, really does. And so I just think that it's important to have that relationship. But thank you for your question. Very wise.
Thank you for that. Any other contributions? Because I do want to pivot us, because time is flying. I do want to pivot us into this conversation about violence. And I'm okay with the time we spent here, because I do think that everything discussed is preventative, right? And maybe violence is something that we can talk about in our mentor relationships, but wanted to just see if there was any other ideas from the audience, that we should be talking about. Yeah, yes.
So part of my purpose for being here and interest in the panel, I don't work with middle school and secondary education. So I am an elementary educator. And the question I'd like to sit on the table is, what is the entry point for mentoring?
Okay.
Because I am seeing a need for mentorship starting in third grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the programs usually do not center around 8 and 9-year-olds as the entry point.
And that's the problem.
But there is definitely
Strong
a
need.
need.
Yeah.
And even if I just sit it on the table and advocate for the programs and resources that are available right now, for 6, 7, 8, and on, grade students, it's sitting it on the table as a challenge for some of the organizations to start thinking about the entry points being earlier. Because I think also as a result of the pandemic and as a result of different life circumstances for parents, we're seeing a need earlier. Someone who's not a teacher, someone who's not an administrator, but someone who's also not a parent, that will affect the lives of children early before there has to be a reason or a trauma for them.
Yes.
Two things.
Yep.
Peer mentoring this is why like we're pushing peer mentoring in schools, in particular K-8s or K-5 too, right? Because what we do know is third graders still look up to fourth, fifth graders, right? So how do we help and support what fifth graders need from a leadership standpoint, which is, I know that's big words for a fifth grader, but if we can figure out how peer mentoring can be a component so that now that third grader can interact with a peer that they already see as cool, that's not doing some of the same negative stuff that they're always used to or seeing, to kind of offset the behavior. The other thing is, and this goes back to community, and this is something we're trying to push, like people don't have to join a program to be a mentor. They can come to the school and mentor directly.